should you talk about awakening? There's this phrase that I heard recently that's sometimes it's foolish to be wise and wise to be silent. And I heard this phrase and I was like, yeah. I felt very, very called out. Because in a number of ways, it's very easy to get swept away in our excitement, especially if you've had a spiritual awakening or any kind of revelation. Really, it doesn't have to be about awakening, to non-duality. It could be any kind of wisdom, anywhere you are on the spiritual path. As soon as you've had a realization, there's this desire to tell it to other people, or when somebody is about to go through something similar, or you see them stuck in the place that you were stuck in, it's very tempting to be like, let me give you the shortcut. Let me just tell you the answer. This is what's going on. This is what you have to know. And sometimes that is the exact wrong thing to do or say in that moment. For example, I had a very good friend of mine recently. We were talking on the phone, and I started just talking to him about awakening. It's about my experience with it, and I just went on and on. I was just very much, in the flow of it, just kind of how I am on these videos. And he really didn't react well to it. There's a lot of rivalry that came up, a lot of competition, a lot of resentment. And it, later I realized that I wasn't really present with him. In that moment, I was off in the absolute. I was kind of trying to channel the beauty and the simplicity of the ever-present awakened state. Except he wasn't in it. He had no idea what I was talking about, and he, there was this resentment that he had because he didn't feel seen or heard or understood. I wasn't with him. I was somewhere else. And this is something that happens. This is a trap that we can fall into. Again, anywhere that you are on the spiritual path, any kind of wisdom that you might come into, that you might, discover. It's not always the wisest thing to spout it. Sometimes the thing to do is to stay silent. Sometimes the thing to do is to sit on your wisdom, as Irvin Yalom, an existential psychologist, likes to say, to sit on your wisdom. And what that means is, even if we may have, the truth, the answer, a wider perspective that a person might benefit from, if we just tell it to them, we're robbing them of the opportunity to discover it for themselves. We're robbing them of the opportunity to really come into that knowledge and that wisdom in a first-hand way. And in that way, we're kind of stepping in as this hero, as this sage, as this, enlightened being, so to speak. When really we're just making a fool of ourselves, because the real compassionate thing to do, the loving thing to do, would simply be to be there with them in whatever stage, whatever place that they're in, and hear them, be present with them. You might know exactly what it is that they are not seeing. You might know exactly what it is that they still need to go through and accept and all that stuff. Stay with them. Don't give them a shortcut. Don't come in like a magic fairy out of nowhere. Don't do that, because they might They might straight up reject the answer. They might put them back further. They might resent you for taking away their, the chance for them to learn it and discover it for themselves. Suddenly you really are elevating yourself in a kind of egoic way above them. Like, here's what I've seen. This is what I've experienced. Let me tell you about it. And that's not what they need. That's not what they need in that moment. So it's important to know when to sit on our wisdom, when silence is the wisest thing. And, there's a real question about, well, should we be talking about awakening at all? That's a legitimate question. That's a legitimate question. If, there is nothing more ego-laden than the notion of enlightenment in the spiritual world. You talk about enlightenment, it is there's so much competition around it, so much egoic, posturing, and the actual thing itself it's almost kind of like ego all around, but the very top tip of the point of the mountain, the actual experience of awakening is the total letting go of all of that. But it's ego all the way to the top. And so it's something to keep in mind, something to remember, that, this is, if you talk about it, if you talk about awakening, if you talk about enlightenment, be careful, because you might be setting yourself up for fueling the flames of egoic spiritual competition. And there is something to be said, about that egoic drive towards enlightenment, towards awakening. A lot of people have it, and they have it for a reason, because it actually is the thing that keeps us going, that keeps us driving to discover, the true, the true base of reality, the truth of consciousness, the truth of existence, our own true non-identities. But, so in that way it serves a purpose. But careful about going around talking too much about it. Especially to people that, that are close to you. Just show up as a loving, compassionate presence. And that is oftentimes the best and really the only thing that that the people closest to you really need or want. So I hope that this is I hope I haven't spoken too much. This is something that I think about a lot myself. And something in me says, keep talking. Keep talking. Keep putting out these videos. Keep putting out this content. But when you're really in connection with another human being, forget all about that. And just be present to where they're at. Because that's the wisest thing that we can do. And the most loving, too.